My name is Suzanne Cashinard, as the things say. I am a senior staff nurse in a children's hospital, and I take personally a special interest in stress because that's something my doctor says I have from my job. So I want to talk about today, oh, there's a few more. A Christopher, an imposter, but that's okay. Waiting for Virginia as well. So there's a few more, but I take a special interest in this subject just because I think it's something that has been prevalent in my own life, but also just because I'm very interested in neuroscience in general. So I think that must be most of us now. Oh, there's more people popping in. Depending on my chat, how long it's going to take, there'll be opportunities. Even if you have questions underway, you can pop that in the chat box. And if we have a few minutes, I'll see how we get on with those questions if you have any questions. Is that okay? So what I want to do, just for those who didn't hear, my name is Suzanne, and I'm a senior staff nurse in a children's hospital. And I want to talk about overcoming stress with a grateful attitude because I find it's something that's really helped myself. So what I want to do is share my screen with you guys. And I hope you can see that. And so what I want to talk about is overcoming stress. Are you all seeing my screen okay? Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. So I think like Tessa was saying that, you know, it's safe to say that most of us have felt or feel. I did. That you can close the door. I'm on. Oh, so there, I don't know what, just hang on a second. I'm not so good with this. My husband's helping me. He's the other imposter. Sorry about that, guys. So what I want to talk about is obviously, like Tessa was saying, about the stress that we probably all have experienced some level of stress, particularly this year. And I'm sure that a lot of us are going through things still with the times that we're in. Now, being under stress is a normal part of life. It actually can be good for us because it's a useful drive. It helps us take action. We can feel more energized. It helps us get results. But it's when we get overwhelmed to the point where it's detrimental to us that it becomes a problem. And stress is a very personal experience. You know, what makes me feel stressed doesn't necessarily affect you. But the negative effect of stress on our physical and our mental health, that's a universal thing. Now, stress often comes from the inside, and it depends on three things. Stress depends on our perception of a situation. That can be related to a memory you have, an experience, your self-esteem, and how our thought processes work in general. The second thing it depends on is how skilled we are in dealing with pressure. And then it depends on our emotional resilience. The World Health Organization has called stress the health epidemic of the 21st century. You know, stress is a major factor in heart disease, and it can contribute to diabetes, dementia, high blood pressure, various types of cancers. So it's really something we want to deal with. So what is stress? You know, according to the dictionary, stress is a condition typically characterized by symptoms of mental and physical tension or strain that can result from a reaction to a situation in which a person feels threatened, pressured, etc. The quote here is, it says, "It is not stress that kills us, but it is our reaction to it," is from Hans Seeley. He was actually the founder of what's called the stress theory. So the key word here is reaction. It's not what we get affected by that kills us, It's how we respond to it. We can't control circumstances and events, but we can learn to control responses. And it's those responses, that controlling of those responses, that makes the difference between a healthy mind and soul and a sick mind and soul. So just a word of caution in relation to stress. There will be times where you actively want to seek putting yourself under stress. If you want to study for further education, yes, it is stressful, but it'll also help you to develop as a person. Preparing for a job interview and doing the interview, that's really stressful, but it'll just get you the job you really want. If you don't put yourself under any kind of stress, you won't achieve anything, and you certainly won't grow as a person either. So you have to figure out for yourself, how do I perceive stress, and then make a choice as to whether you want to put yourself under it or not. So it's about how I choose to respond to a situation around me. So I have two subjects I want to talk about today. The first is, what is a God-focused mindset, and what is a grateful attitude? So a God-focused mindset, the Bible talks about our minds a lot. It actually talks a lot about how God wants us to use our brain, because he gave us one. And the Bible says, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. This isn't about being brainwashed, but it is about perspective, because you're changing it from your own perspective to God's perspective. And being God-focused means to be focused on the character of God, on how God sees the world, on how his mindset, his character, and his promises. Generally speaking, people who are unhappy, they lean more on their weaknesses and struggles with self-identity. When we focus on ourselves, I know for myself, I lose perspective, I get insecure, I doubt myself in relation to others. And, if we do that, we tend to compare ourselves to others with feelings of inadequacy, and envy can take over. But when we focus on God, on his character, qualities, and promises, we can let that renew our minds. When we focus on things outside ourselves, positive things that we are not in control of, we realize a godly perspective that go deeper than ourselves. Even positivity isn't as deep as gratitude. And neuroscience has shown that changes in thinking actually changing the brain matter itself. You can see that on scans when you deal with patients that have brain injuries and trauma, patients with depressions. The way that they think under a scan, you can see how their brain matter actually changes depending on how and what they're thinking. And this neuroscience is fairly new in the sense of now we can see it on screens, but it's obviously something that's been developed over years. It's something the Bible always has known, because the Bible talks about epigenetics, which is this scientific power of the mind to change the brain. The Bible calls it, as a man thinks, so he is. The neuroplasticity is what I talked about before, that spiritually it is the renewing of our mind. It's the way the brain changes as a result of mental activity. So the Bible has known this always, and finally the science is catching up, and we can take advantage of this science. So the choice is to think outside yourself and renewing your perspective through focusing on God. So what is a grateful attitude? Now, according to psychology, they define it as a positive emotional response expressing appreciation. And it's this expressing appreciation that's really important, because anyone can say a positive word or think a positive thing, but it's the appreciation that creates the depth that is gratitude. Gratitude it is a human way of acknowledging the good things in life. It turns what we have into enough and more. It turns denial into acceptance. It can turn chaos into order and confusion into clarity. The object of my regular thinking will determine how my days, years, and ultimately my life plays out. Everything starts in the mind, and it really is like the first questionnaire thing that she made was, it is a matter of mind over matter. Now, technically, our brain is wired for disciplined thoughts, for deep intellectual thoughts. So the very thing we should do is pay attention to the task at hand. You know, we often laugh at women as women, men can only do one thing at a time and so forth. But actually, they're onto something, because our brains literally get messed up by shallow thinking. If we focus on one thing at a time, we can actually create positive physical brain changes. And that's what we want to take advantage of. It's like envisioning yourself going through a forest and there's this thick undergrowth and you want to pave your way through it. You need to walk that path a couple of times till it actually becomes a path, but you have to do that consistently. And since when we express gratitude and receive gratitude, our brain releases dopamine and serotonin. And you've probably heard about these chemicals before, the reward chemical and the mood stabilizer. They're neurotransmitters that are responsible for our emotions, and they make us feel good. And we can harness those emotions and those hormones. When we consciously practice gratitude every day, we can help these neural pathways to strengthen themselves and ultimately create a permanent, grateful, and positive nature. But we have to be consistent in this and persistent in it. And that's really essential. And in order to develop a grateful attitude, you have to develop a disciplined thought life. Now, it all sounds like very hard work, but it is a matter of decision. A part of this is increasing your awareness of what you allow into your mind. Once you've developed an awareness of your thoughts, you can start practicing a more focused reflection on your thoughts. You know, this is an ancient biblical principle that you probably heard of more in recent days, like mindfulness or mindful meditation. The Bible had talked about this for thousands of years. And it's really this focused reflection is deep intellectual thinking, body awareness, emotion regulation, and a sense of self that changes the brain positively. You know, consequently of doing that, people will gain health, happiness, and peace. And that's the exact product of a disciplined thought life, like the Bible talks about. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things, because you will create new neural pathways in your brain to overcome all the negativity. The Bible isn't out to modify your feelings, but it really helps you direct your thoughts and mindsets to overcome those feelings that are dragging you down. So our thoughts are unstable and changeable, and you want to take advantage of that. This constant change means that the deeper you think, the more change you can make. You know, if you have control of your thought, you can have more improvement in your mind. And this change is real because we can prove it. But if you don't get rid of a bad thought, you can reinforce it. So thinking of something more positive with gratitude, you will starve that negative thought and it'll become weak. If you improve your mindset, you can learn to think more clearly. You learn things more easily. You develop a greater focus, and you will manage reactive emotions. And that's exactly what we want to learn. And this gives us, in turn, more hope. That in turn creates more peace, excitement, and health. And this is a positive cycle. It just goes the right way around all the time. Now, just you know, in relation to peace, peace is not absence of conflict. We'll always have conflict and things around us. But peace is that inner spiritual confidence and contentment, even when things aren't quite the way we would like it to be around us, because it will never be like we would want it to be around us. It's not about controlling the environment. It's about controlling our responses. So our actions in combating stress have to be intentional. Nothing changes by chance, but you can pay attention to your thoughts and you can be disciplined in changing them. And the effect on gratitude is long lasting, as opposed to just thinking positive thoughts, which is why it's really important to have that element of appreciation in there. We know that it changes psychological conditions like anxiety and depression. And the two main sites in our brain that regulate emotion, memory, and bodily function get activated with feelings of gratitude. You know, studies have actually shown that people who seek counseling, when they write letters of gratitude, besides going to their regular counseling sessions, They felt better, and they actually recovered better, quicker from their depression than those who were asked to go home and write all the negative things they had experienced. They would feel worse, and their depression and anxiety persisted. So what we input is really important. Studies have also shown that people who feel grateful have a marked reduction in the level of cortisol, which is our stress hormone. Cortisol works with certain parts of your brain to control your mood, motivation, and fear. It fuels your fight and flight responses. And it's when our cortisol levels are reduced, that makes us more resilient to emotional setbacks and to negative experiences. So it's a win-win in that sense, both in one end and the other end, so to speak. There's a mindfulness awareness research center even in UCLA, and they state the same, that gratitude changes the neural structures in our brain and makes us feel happier and more content. Gratitude simply alters the way we see the world and ourselves. By paying attention to what we have by gratitude, we produce an intrinsic and strong awareness of the present. Sharing thoughts of gratitude with someone else is a great way to sustain motivation and strengthen your emotional skills. And then you build on there. It's important to understand that the mental health benefit of gratitude takes time. It doesn't emerge immediately. It's not a quick fix or an immediate relief. But what it does do, it is asking us to accept that we are stressed and sad and focus on how to reduce it. Studies suggest, like I said before, if we only have positive activities, they actually decrease after a while, but gratitude increase after a while. Much of our time is spent pursuing things that we currently don't have. Gratitude reverses our priorities. It helps us to appreciate the people and things that we do have. It enhances our emotional resilience. And I just want to share a few activities that you can do. And I'm sure some of you are doing this already, but one of them is a no-brainer, is to keep a gratitude journal. When you start writing about people and things in your life that you're grateful for, your outlook on them will change. And that can be even people you find are difficult. Find something you're grateful for about them, and you will think that they have changed, but it's actually you who changes. Go back and recollect some of the good things that had happened in your past by looking in your gratitude journal, and it really does change your mind. You can also make gentle reminders in stressful situations. And by that, I mean that if you're in a stressful situation, like I had a really stressful situation at work the other day, and I was doing this gentle reminder because it was so stressful. And I started thinking about 5 things I was grateful for in my job in the middle of the stressful situations, because I didn't want to be bogged down by it. And I just focused on what I'm grateful for, and then I could deal with the issue later. But it actually helped me to keep my head above water during the day, because it was just one of these, I would have gone home and felt rubbish. And I didn't want to go home and feel rubbish. I wanted to feel I've done a great job and I want to be on top. So it has to be in relation to the stress of whatever ticks you off on that specific things that you have to consider what you're grateful for. It can be in a relationship, it could be a financial stress. Think about 4 to 5 things you're grateful for in relation to that stressful situation. And be careful with comparison, particularly social comparison. Many people cause themselves stress by making the wrong comparisons. They compare themselves to those who have more, do more, are more, and we feel inferior. I know I can be guilty of that sometimes, instead of feeling inspired. And if you find yourself making that type of comparison, you have 2 options. You can either compare yourself to one who have less, which will remind you of how lucky and blessed you are, or you can feel gratitude for having people who in your life who actually care about you and can inspire you. Either way will lead you away from the stress and envy and closer to feelings of gratitude. And the 4th one is gratitude meditation. It's really like a prayer or meditation or mindfulness of the thoughts and feeling on all the people around you, situations, or whatever you are truly grateful for. That will help you enhance your perspective and clarify your vision and free us from stress. You know, practicing gratitude is gaining a life view of thankfulness. We can experience the purest form of all positive emotion, and it helps us to realize that nothing is obvious and nothing is to be taken for granted. And Melody Beattie, she's an American writer, and I think she's very right when she says, gratitude makes sense of your past, it brings peace for today, and creates a vision for tomorrow. And I've got a couple of book recommendations here. So Caroline Leaf, she's a neuroscientist and a communications pathologist. And she has written several books called, one is called Switch on Your Brain, which includes the 21-day brain detox, which I have, and I've read it a couple of times, and it's super easy. It sounds like a lot of work, but it's actually really, really easy how to detox your brain. And the reason why it's 21 days is because it takes 21 days to break down the negativity, and it takes between 21 and 63 days to build back up the positivity. So give yourself a couple of months if that's what you need. It's like going to the gym. It doesn't happen overnight, but I can really recommend that. She's also written a book called 101 Ways to Be Less Stressed and Cleaning Up Your Mental Mess, which has just been released a couple of weeks ago. There's so much on the internet because mindfulness and stress is all the rage. It's been like that the last 10, 15 years. So there's so much out there, but these are just some of the suggestions. So that's really just what I wanted to share with you. And if you have any questions, I can stop sharing now. Oop. I'll be quiet. If you have any questions, please feel free to pop it in the chat. And if not, I hope you enjoyed this.